Within Xiaomi's latest announcement, we have the Mi 10T series of smartphones, and within that whole series we have the base Mi 10T, and then the lesser Mi 10T Lite, and then the Mi 10T Pro, which we have here. And I've been using this Mi 10T Pro for about a week now, and here is what we have to share with you about the brand new Mi 10T Pro. Let's review the Mi 10T Pro by taking a look at 6 crucial points about this phone right here. And if you want to skip to whichever aspect that you want to know most, then we also have that time stamped on this video, so you can click and jump directly into that section. So, starting off, we'll talk about the screen first, because this phone has a 6.67-inch IPS LCD screen that can go up to 144Hz refresh rate with a resolution of 2400 by 1080 pixels. The screen looks good. I don't really have much complaints right here, and it also managed to trick me into thinking that this is an AMOLED screen because the screen lamination is just very good. And what I mean by screen lamination here is that the layers are compressed to become a very thin film, as seen on the selfie camera right here, which doesn't have that black glow like what we've seen on other lower grade IPS LCD screens. And from what I can see, the pixel response time is not really that good because I can see some ghosting or the pixel trails while I'm scrolling at 144Hz on the home screen menu. And Xiaomi also advertised that this phone has something called adaptive sync. This means that the display can technically downclock its own refresh rate while you're viewing a static image. Let's just say you're scrolling halfway and then you're at a browser, you're reading something, then you just don't do anything to the screen. It will downclock from 144Hz down to 30Hz to save some of that battery life. Now let's talk about the specs and performance of the Mi 10T Pro that we have here. So it comes with a Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 chipset, 8GB of RAM, 128GB of internal storage, and also 5000 mAh battery. And the overall performance, I'm not really gonna focus much because you already know how the Snapdragon 865 performs, so here are just a few graphs. And as for gaming, I played a lot of games using this phone right here, particularly Genshin Impact, the brand new game that's very graphically intensive, and it runs really well on the Mi 10T Pro, which you can also check it out at the top right corner there. We made a separate video for gaming on this phone. Now, as for the software, the Mi 10T Pro comes with Android 10 with MIUI 12 skin on top. And we've also talked about MIUI 12 a lot in the past, so check those reviews out instead. As a quick recap, I still think that MIUI 12 has improved a lot, particularly the camera UI here, where you can now rearrange the camera modes. That's a nice quality of life touch, but the settings menu is still messy. One new thing that I realized here is that there's occasionally some slowdowns here and there. It stutters a bit, and this is especially emphasized when you're using 144Hz and then you're expecting smooth motion while scrolling through the home screen. I don't know why this happens. Maybe there's just some optimization to be done on the software level. And now comes the battery life of the Mi 10T Pro. With that 5000 mAh battery, it can last for more than 18 hours in our battery life test, and I think that's just pretty standard nowadays for this chipset and that battery size. The charging time though, Xiaomi is also incorporating something called middle tap technology, which they are shortening it to just call MMT technology. It kind of resembles and mimics how a physically dual cell battery charges, so it goes in through the center and then splits its charge to both cells of the battery, and it can charge from 15 to 100% in just about 60 minutes, and I think that's just innovative. And as for the design, looking at the Mi 10T Pro here, it's rather sleek, nice to hold, has some heft to it, so it definitely feels very premium in the hands. And if you want to spice things up, Xiaomi also included this case right here, which has a big Xiaomi logo at the bottom here. I do appreciate them for doing this instead of just printing the big Xiaomi logo on the phone itself. So if you're like me, I don't like any sort of big branding on the phone itself. So this is a good compromise. And since this is using an IPS LCD screen, they are also using a physical fingerprint scanner on the side here, which also combos as the power button. Thank you Xiaomi for doing this, because I really like a physical fingerprint scanner, as compared to those under-display fingerprint scanners. And this phone also has an IR blaster at the top and also the usual USB port and loudspeaker at the bottom. One thing I do want to highlight is that the previous Mi 9T Pro doesn't have an IR blaster, but it's on the Mi 10T Pro now. So that's good. And looking at the back of the phone though, that's a huge and thick camera bump on a phone like this. It just seems like Xiaomi slapped on a domino piece at the back of the phone. I'm not too sure what kind of design is this, but anyway, since we're talking about the cameras, let's just talk about how the camera actually performs. But before that, I do want to highlight two things. Number one, the main camera sensor is a 108 megapixel sensor and the aperture on that main sensor is f1.69, so it's really good for those low light photography. And Xiaomi neglected the telephoto camera in favor of a macro camera instead. Not too sure why, but let's take a look at all the pictures that it takes. So as for the main camera, it actually takes really good pictures, good clarity, flatter colors, and enabling AI here seems to have fixed the contrast and color saturation issue if you want more of that punchy colors. Indoor shots do look great, but if you take close-up shots using the main camera, then it kind of reveals some sort of a striation effect around the non-center part of the frame. And then it is here that I also encountered some focusing issue that's going on with the main camera here, because whenever I take pictures of these dogs right here, it tends to focus at the background. Not too sure what's going on here, but it happened quite a few times. Night shots are actually pretty good. I took this picture in pitch black and it still turns out good. As for the ultra wide angle camera, it's also pretty good, but it's a fixed focus lens, but it doesn't really matter anyway because you're taking pictures of landscape mostly, and landscapes are always at infinity focal length anyway. As for the macro camera, the 5 megapixel sensor does take some okay pictures, but I honestly do prefer the telephoto macro lens that is found on the Poco F2 Pro instead, because that macro camera can really take some amazing macro shots. As for the video capabilities, it can take videos of up to 4K 60fps or 8K at 30fps, but if you enable the super stable mode, then it will only take videos at 1080p 30fps. Oh, before I forget, please do not take any 8K videos using this phone because it's only using a USB 2.0 port at the bottom and there is no microSD card expandability. So you're stuck with whatever storage configuration that you have, and transferring those 8K videos to your PC via USB 2.0 is going to take forever. Also, since it's using USB 2.0, it doesn't have any functionality to output HDMI via the USB Type-C port at the bottom. And yeah, that's about it. That's the Mi 10T Pro. So with all of those out of the way, now I want to ask you back the question, who should actually buy the Mi 10T Pro? Because I can't pinpoint who this phone is made for. And if we take a step back and compare both Mi 10T and the Mi 10T Pro together, the only main difference here is the main camera sensor's resolution from 64 megapixel to 108 on the Mi 10T Pro. And other than that, everything is pretty much the same, so you should get the Mi 10T instead if you don't want the 108 megapixel camera, right? And yeah, that's true, but if you take a look at all of the smartphones that are available in the market right now, the closest and most similar competitor with the Mi 10T, not the Mi 10T Pro, the Mi 10T, is the Poco F2 Pro. Both of those phones are very similar in terms of specs, and the main difference between the Mi 10T and also the Poco F2 Pro is going to be the screen. So the Poco F2 Pro has a 60Hz AMOLED screen, whereby the Mi 10T and the Mi 10T Pro has a screen that can go up to 144Hz, but it's an IPS LCD. Not to say that IPS LCD is bad, because this screen right here is actually pretty good. So I think it ultimately depends on what you really want and how close or how far apart the pricing will be, because for me personally, I would recommend you to either get the Poco F2 Pro or also the Mi 10T instead. The Mi 10T Pro is for those who are going to take mobile photography seriously for their 108 megapixel sensor. And yeah, I think the positioning is just a bit weird right now. Not too sure what's going on, and I also want to know how is the Mi Note series is going to be fitted into this whole catalog of smartphones by Xiaomi. Because remember, last year the Mi Note 10 was the first ever smartphone to have a 108 megapixel sensor, and they made a big deal about how the Mi Note series is meant for photographies, but this year it seems like the Mi whatever T series is the photography focused smartphone. So what happens to the Mi Note series? I just find it to be kind of weird. So if you have any comments or questions, leave them down in the comment section below. I'll try to answer them whenever I can, and we'll see you in the next video.